essentially. When you play the freedom game, what you're trying to do is grow. What you're trying to be curious about is, why am I here? I have a few short years on this earth. Is there a reason why I came here? When you're playing the freedom game, you're seeking to empower other people. When you're playing the status game, you're seeking to look empowered yourself. When you're playing the status game, you always want to appear like a leader. When you're playing the freedom game, you're actually empowering other leaders. You're building other leaders. Positive or negative for you. But really what we're going to talk about is, are you playing the freedom game or status game in your life? And we've covered this here and there in some of the pieces, even in the strategic uncertainty that we did last week. We covered it a little bit, but I wanted to go deeper into it because we're going to go deeper into what freedom means to each of you and how you're going to structure your life short-term and long-term to have freedom. A lot of times people might say, I want freedom, but what is that exactly? I would say it's a very personal answer, but there are some patterns that we all go through. And I'll share this with a story. So I just came back from an event around entrepreneurs and coaches. For a week I was there. And one of the insights that really hit me as I was sitting there in a room of 100 plus entrepreneurs, and I was reflecting back on a lot of things that I had been reflecting on. And I've been on this journey as an entrepreneur for 10 years. And I really thought about, well, what am I doing? What am I going through? What hit me was that, you know what? I get to wake up every morning. I get to look forward to my day. I'm excited towards the things that I'm working on. I'm excited about the moment when I wake up. I'm grateful for it. And I'm grateful for the family I have. I'm grateful for the life that I get to have. I'm super grateful for the health and well-being of everybody around me, especially under the light of losing a family member very recently. I'm grateful for the long-term path that I'm on. It feels very incredibly purposeful, fulfilled, and connected. I'm grateful that I have a sense of mission pretty much every day. And I'm even grateful for the challenges that I get to experience, no matter how hard they are. I take it as a part of life, as I take it as what it is. And when I sit there end of the day or beginning right now, and a lot of times when I share, it's hard to articulate what my life is like and what is on the outside, because I can share the human experience side of it, but it's hard to share my personal experience of it, because my personal experience is different from what I can describe a lot of times. But one of the things that hit me was, I actually retired about 7 years ago. It's like it didn't hit me until I was sitting there around other entrepreneurs and they were sharing about their business, their life. Now, when I say that, it doesn't mean that I don't work, I don't have any challenges, or I have some kind of passive income going on in the background that lets me just sit around on the beach with some drink. That's not my idea of retirement at all. At the end of the day or end of the week, and I'm reflecting back on my life, I usually look back and I'm like, this feels like a dream. And at times it feels like surreal, because a few years ago I was struggling to build something like this. And the reason why I'm describing this, to not say that, oh, I have a great life, you should make it like this. Your life is going to be likely different than mine in different ways. Maybe there will be some similarities. And I often say, if somebody else were to live my life, they might be utterly miserable. They might not enjoy the life that I have, because it's different. This is only for me. It's not for other people. But the one running theme in this whole life is that, now keep in mind, on the outside, I look like just like any other person. I work hard, I show up for my family, I drive around, I eat, it's all normal stuff that everybody else does, but the quality is very different. And the more I talk to people, the more deeper I've gone. I really think what people are seeking is a sense of personal freedom. Now, you might define it differently for yourself, but that needs to become very, very specific. And the thing that I want to now talk about is the opposite of it. What we seek is personal freedom, a sense of freedom, but what we create is something that we hate, and that is, on the surface we like, but at a deeper level it's a black hole. And that's the contrast of what I'm describing. The contrast is the status. And that's what we're essentially, if you're a human being, you come from the human family, and you've evolved from people who come from the same family, let's say humans, same genetic structure, at least at the physical level. No matter what culture you are, no matter where you come from in the world, whether you come from the East, West, or somewhere in the middle, what you're going to play at a genetic level is status games. And the reason why you play that is because your brain is actually wired to play those games. And I'll talk about why I call it games, but you're going to go towards status a lot more than freedom. And here's what I mean. And here's how it shows up. So years ago, when I started my business, one of the things that I really hated was that here I am jumping into this path, and I'm going to have to start all over again. I just spent 6-7 years trying to understand the career path, and I felt like I was learning a little bit. I was going somewhere, but I restarted everything. And when I restarted everything, I felt very small. I felt like I had no recognition, especially as a business owner, especially in a business that I didn't know how to describe, especially when other people have no idea what the hell I'm doing, and especially because I'm going to be in the background doing a bunch of work that might or might not give me some success in the eyes of people. And so for years, I had to be a failure in my own eyes and in the eyes of a lot of people around me for me to become a success this way. And that's a very hard thing to do. And the reason for that is that for years, I was trained since I was a child to gain status in whatever social environment I'm in. And here's how status show up. It shows up when you're a little kid. It shows up, are you a good son or daughter? Are you a good student? Are you a good worker? Do these people like you? Are you pleasing towards all these other people? Are you agreeable versus disagreeable? And we kind of play that game throughout our life, hundreds of thousands of times, and our mind is not only wired that way, but it gets amplified. Now we get to a point where we want to start a business or a new path forward, and the thing we need to communicate is that, you know what, I'm not going to be a good boy anymore, a good girl. I'm going to have to disagree with a bunch of people. I'm not going to be pleasing people. I'm going to be creating boundaries around the thing that I need to do that's really important to me. It's a part of my purpose and mission in life. And I don't even know how to communicate that, to be honest. And I might appear rude or arrogant towards people when I don't attend some of the social gatherings, or I start to change in some ways. I don't drink anymore, or I don't enjoy the conversations that others might enjoy. That is a hard task, because all of our life we've been trained to be pleasing and to be social and to be agreeable to others and to confirm people's perception of reality when our perception has completely changed. Our paradigm has completely changed. And so years ago, I remember I used to sit in family gatherings, and even though I jumped towards a path that meant a lot to me, I would sit there and I hated it. I hated it so much because I would sit there and I would look around. I would hear conversations around, oh, I'm getting this new car, or I'm getting this another house. Oh, I got this promotion in my job. And one reason I hated it, which is a little bit embarrassing to say, is that I don't have any of that stuff. I'm struggling here. And another reason why I hated it, because I didn't actually care about those things. I felt like I should have cared. What I wanted was to actually have a deeper conversation around, well, how are we growing as people, as human beings? How are we developing spiritually? How are we connecting as a community? How are we solving the problems that we have in our family? And I would get more and more miserable. And I'm like, I'm on a growth path. Why do I feel more miserable? And whether I'm sure many of you are relating to that, as you start to change, you start to see that the world around you remains the same, but you've changed. And there was this one It wasn't all of a sudden, but I think it was this period in my business, maybe about 8 years ago or so, where I realized I was sitting around a bunch of people like this and a Zoom, also a couple of times in person, and all of a sudden I realized I was really enjoying myself. I was happy, I was connected, I felt purposeful, and not once did I have any thought about misery. I'm like, what's going on? Do I hate my family? Do I hate the people around me? Then I thought about this for a little while, and then I realized, you know what? I don't hate my family. I don't hate my community. And I realized that I was expecting something in an environment that in a world where I'm the one who made the decision to shift and change, or I was called to change, however you want to look at it, or transform or evolve. But I was expecting the people who are the people I was attached to see that change for the positive. And here's the truth about human beings. When you change, it's a very good possibility that most people are going to get scared around you. And they will try to hold you in some ways because they care about you, for you to be safe. So they will not like your new ideas. They will not like your new way of doing things. You're not like your new sense of freedom that you've gained, whatever that looks like to you. It will look like you're about to die. You're gonna die. Your own mind, your own brain will think the same things because we're hardwired to protect each other. So here's what ends up happening when I spend more and more time with the people in these kind of groups. I see some of you taking deeper breaths here. When I spent more and more time, I actually realized when I would go back to my family and community, I would be at ease. I would be at peace. I didn't have any problems with conversations about cars or countertops or houses. I'd even join some of them if I wanted to. But I wasn't miserable anymore. I was at peace. I was meeting people where they were because my needs were met. And I had a need to grow and evolve towards this thing that I called freedom. Now, I didn't really know what that was. And that's what I want to go towards, is that and I'm calling this freedom games to make it a little bit lighter. To make it a little bit lighter, but really what it is when you go towards freedom, and a lot of investors and entrepreneurs, they get this calling or this sense, this understanding, this inspiration. You know what? I want to create a life that's free, but they don't really know a lot of times what that means. The reason why they don't know what that means, one, because they don't define it. They haven't defined it yet. Second, what has happened is that their brain is trained to follow the status game. So, for example, they're going to jump in and be inspired by somebody who has created a life of freedom. And on the outside, they have a show of freedom. The show of freedom looks like this. They have some big house, they have some nice cars, or they claim that they have a lot of time on their own. So all external things. And the reason why that marketing works so well, in fact, I know a marketer who built his whole business model when he had no money. He just rented a bunch of cars and rented a space and just talked to people while being in that space. He's a famous character, and he even claims that that's how he built his fame, because people just looked for outer signs of freedom. They didn't care whether you felt free inside or not. And to me, that's kind of, yes, I get why he did that, but to me, that's a little bit unethical, in the sense that that is not what people are really seeking. That's what, so that looks like freedom, but what that is status. Because when you get the Lamborghini, you're the man. When you get the house, you're the man or the woman, whatever that looks like. When you get that promotion, or when you build that business to a level, you're the person that everybody looks up to. But the journey towards that, nobody knows what the hell you're going through, and nobody cares, to be honest. Because and by nobody cares, I don't mean that they don't care about you. What I mean is that they don't care for you to grow as a person. That's not how most people are hardwired to think. They care to protect you more, a lot more than care to let you grow. You're going to have to learn to communicate that piece. So most of what we look towards, even when we think of freedom, is those. And here's what I want to help you understand. What are the freedom games? There are only two. It falls into two buckets. There's the external freedom, there's the internal freedom. You get to decide what the external freedom is. The internal freedom is actually very common to all of us. External freedom, this is what external freedom is, and this is why it's easier to focus on the external freedom. External freedom is time freedom, location freedom, and the ability to create experiences that you want. Now, the reason why it's easier to focus on that is because it's easy to say that, hey, you know what, I'm going to go buy that Lamborghini. I'm going to look towards that house that I want to build. I'm going to go have these vacation experiences. That's the external wrapper of freedom. Now, I have no problem with any of them. It's your life. You go create what you want. Now, the internal is what most people struggle with. That's where status games comes in, because that's where you need to make a decision around is, what is the game you're playing? Because internal freedom, and this is common to all of them, to most humans, is that what we're looking for when we start to grow is a sense of peace. And I love this framing of this by Naval Ravikant that says, and a lot of people frame it as happiness, but he's like, no, if you can get peace, happiness is peace in motion. And it's not a temporary emotion. It's just a state or a being, a sense of being you have, which means that no matter if you can imagine a sense of peace is the ocean and the waves are the emotions on top. So what you're seeking is that deeper sense of peace, the depth of ocean, not a momentary wave or turbulent emotion of happiness or sadness or all that stuff. So that is, if you cannot be at peace, it doesn't matter if you're sitting in your Lamborghini or in your big house. If you're miserable, it's not going to matter. If you're on vacation, you've taken a whole community there and you cannot, your mind is rushing, you can't be there, you hate it, you're miserable, you don't know why you're there. That is not a world to be in, no matter how much. The only thing you're going to get is a temporary hit of dopamine that other people are going to recognize you in the moment, and then it's gone. But what we're seeking is an everlasting sense of peace. What we're seeking is, yes, the ability to be able to do what we want, but it has to be attached to a purpose. So it's, and most people say, well, I just want to live, do whatever I want. That's not enough for human beings. Your mind needs some kind of structure. This is why I think religions have this a little bit better framed, is that, okay, if you could do whatever you want, what would be your purpose? What is the thing that you would focus on? Because you can't do everything. In fact, the more things you do, the more you're going to struggle as a human being. You'll be all over the place. So sitting on the picture of sitting on the beach, having margaritas, looking at the ocean, that's going to last about a day, maybe a week, maybe a year tops. After that, you're going to get miserable. How do I know this? Because I've worked with people who have achieved that, all of that. And I remember this one coach sent one of his clients to me who he had been working with for a year. And he's like, listen, I've done everything I can with this amazing individual. He's like, I've run out of tools. This guy has everything you can think of. He has all the money in the world. His health is degrading. His family, he's miserable around his family. He sold his business and he doesn't know how to start a business because he's scared of it, because he lost 20 years of his life being miserable in another business, even though he built it to a multi-million-dollar business and he sold it. Like, can you help him? I'm like, I have no idea. I got on a call with him and I realized, guess what he was missing? A sense of purpose, a sense of direction, a sense of fulfillment, a sense of peace. And no amount of money is going to help him buy that. Of course, he can pay for the coaching, but he still has to do the work. And he's actually worse off than the person if he had come to me or another coach 20 years ago and paid even more and gone through the journey. You would have actually built a better business and built a better life, and you wouldn't have had this problem to begin with. So what I'm trying to here communicate is and this week, I'd love for everybody to think about, what is my personal understanding of freedom? What am I seeking? Are you seeking just location freedom, or there's a purpose for that location freedom? Just time freedom, or there's a purpose for that time freedom? Are you seeking to be recognized in what you're doing, or are you seeking to be free? Those are two different things. And most people are seeking to be recognized. Even people who have worked within the corporate world, a lot of times when they're seeking to grow in a company, growth is connected to freedom, but what they're seeking is a promotion, a sense of recognition. A lot of times they're okay with being recognized, but they don't really care what the benefits are on the other side because they're given a title. And a lot of companies know this, so they give them a little bit of freedom, but actually they give them a lot more responsibilities. Like, here, you have a title. They're like, oh shit, what am I going to do with this thing? because people know this. And it's mostly because we're not clear about what we're seeking. And again, my question is, what is your personal freedom going to be about? Not just tomorrow, not just next year, for the next 10, 20, 30 years, maybe even the rest of your life. What is your life going to be about? Because if you cannot answer that clearly, you're going to fall into all kinds of weird pitfalls of status games. Why? Because your brain is naturally wired to seek freedom. Why? Because we came from a small little communities of human beings who actually survived because we were given a status in that community. We were told that you're a leader or you get to protect us. We were also given status by people giving us resources, but that world is gone. We don't live in small tribal communities. We live in a world of unlimited resources. We live in a world of actually abundance. In fact, if you talk to scientists, most of the problems we have, from obesity to heart problems, cancer, and all that stuff, is due to the abundance of resources, not due to limitation. We don't have starving children, at least not in the Western world. We don't have people dying of all kinds of diseases. And we did very well with COVID, even as much as the media would like to make you believe otherwise. We didn't have bodies out on the street the way it happened 100 years ago. Our resources have gone up, but our survival mechanisms are still from thousands of years ago. And those survival mechanisms push us towards creating status within our tribe or group. This is why you see big political strives between the two, because all the politicians have to do is divide people into two groups and tell them, hey, if you could just keep repeating this thing, you'll have a lot of status with this group. If you can just keep repeating this thing, you'll have a lot of status, but you cannot disagree with them. And all you see is, there was a joke, I think Joe Rogan talks about this, is like, and sometimes when you go to the left, more the extreme left-leaning people, they say a lot of good things. It's like, we should have compassion for people, we should take care of people, we should do all this stuff, but all of a sudden there'll be like one of the extreme thought processes is like, oh, I need to think like this too, but I can't disagree with that because I'm part of that community and I'm part of that group. I've called myself a liberal or Democrat. All of a sudden they get wrapped up into that status game. And the way we're wired as human beings is that once we are part of a community, we need to mostly agree with everything. Why? Because we are afraid of being outcasted. And there are very few people who can stand up in courage and say, you know what, this is what I care about. This is what I'm doing, regardless of what you think. I love you, I care about you, but this is important. Whether that's to your family, community, or the world at large, that's what you're doing. Versus, I'm going to attack you because you think something different. Again, we can apply this to so many situations. When you play status games, you're always afraid, you're always disconnected, you're always trying to compete with somebody. When you play the freedom game, what you're trying to do is grow. What you're trying to be curious about is, why am I here? I have a few short years on this earth. Is there a reason why I came here? When you're playing the freedom game, you're seeking to empower other people. When you're playing the status game, you're seeking to look empowered yourself. When you're playing the status game, you always want to appear like a leader. When you're playing the freedom game, you're actually empowering other leaders. You're building other leaders. I'll leave it at that. If you enjoyed that video, make sure you click on this video or this video. It will serve you to move your growth journey forward. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.